Let me start with something crazy. I'm a conservative climate activist. It's confusing to many, but to my generation, this issue is not political because we have the most to lose, and we will lose it if the older generations don't get their act together. But before I get to a conservative alternative, I believe we must address why there must be a conservative alternative. And although there are clear frustrations that I think we all share when it comes to conservatives and climate change, the conservative position of denial and inaction, that's only acknowledging part of the story. It's not that simple, and without acknowledging the other crucial part of the climate inaction story on the right, I fear we won't move forward. So in just 7 minutes, with some of the world's most influential environmental leaders in the room, who I'm honored to speak alongside of, I want to do some soul searching and have an uncomfortable conversation this early in the morning that too few have been willing to have. I grew up in Wisconsin in a family that always prioritized nature and in turn fighting climate change, but the more that I became active in conservative politics in middle school and high school, yes, middle school and high school, super normal kid stuff, I became less likely to want climate action. In fact, I started to become skeptical of climate change. Why? The easy answer would be to just simply blame the evil, climate-denying conservatives. Well, ironically enough, the same distancing from environmentalism that I was experiencing was happening to other conservatives nationwide. In 1991, 78% of Americans identified as environmentalists. Today, that number's 41%. 41%. Clearly, people didn't just start wanting the world to burn. I've spent 500,000 miles on the road finding answers to climate change over the past 5 years. It's a lot of miles, and a lot of them in an electric car, but also highlighting that very divide that we need to bridge. A majority of my time has been spent in places that climate activists have not dared to go. A coal mine in Utah, a nuclear plant in Georgia, farms in the Midwest, oil fields in Texas, timberlands in the Pacific Northwest, ranches in Montana, wetlands in Louisiana with duck hunters. That's just a few. And it didn't take me long to find out what we've done wrong as environmentalists. First, there's been an elitism that we've completely ignored. We've scoffed at and villainized energy workers, farmers, and the very people who tirelessly give us the energy and food that we need to survive. We've refused to spend time in communities marginalized by the effects of climate change, not just minority communities, but also low-income rural communities in Middle America. In nearly all the communities that I just listed and the ones that I visited, they say I'm the first climate activist that has ever been there. We've pursued many policies that only work for a few, particularly wealthy urbanites. We've lectured people on how to live their lives, but we've failed to understand their lives in the first place. We want things like electric vehicles and solar panels, but we refuse mining in our own backyard, so we just export it to countries with slave labor and zero environmental standards. And for many, whether they know it or not, the environment isn't a priority anymore. Politics is. Many organizations, including some organizations in this very room, have refused to endorse pro-climate candidates just because they run as Republicans. Other completely separate topics, while maybe important, are roped into climate litmus tests that are always changing. Right-of-center groups can't get funded, and pro-climate conservatives, which now make up the second largest caucus in Congress, which is great, are ignored like they don't exist. And if a policy doesn't further a left-of-center political agenda, it doesn't get pushed for. The media has the same problem. When I testified at Congress with Greta in late 2019, I received the most questions out of any of the speakers there from the members of Congress on both sides, yet didn't get an ounce of airtime on the major news networks. Greta and the other Democratic witnesses were all over the news for days. Al Gore, Hillary Clinton, and other leaders literally cropped me out of their social media posts completely. Headlines, divisiveness, and partisan politics might be easier to fundraise on, but the climate doesn't care how much money the big environmental groups have if it's not moving the needle. Lastly, there's been a significant lack of reality on an issue that needs realistic dialogue. Drawbacks of preferred solutions have been completely ignored. Important solutions that transition us to a cleaner future have been gatekept and deemed not good enough. An all-or-nothing approach has been pursued, and we've received the nothing part of that equation. We've completely oversimplified the problem to the public, as well as the solutions. And most importantly to me, we've caused complete alarm in my generation, much of which isn't actually baked in science, and it's caused depression and anxiety in my peers, which has made them less likely to actually do something about climate change. So yeah, there are real, understandable reasons why many Americans are skeptical of climate action and why we haven't been able to make progress. As easy as it is to hammer on conservatives, and believe me, I do that all the time, it's why our organization exists, we need to acknowledge these realities, and we can't make progress without it. So now that I've gotten my therapy session out for the day, let's take a minute to talk solutions. We need a true commitment to climate change. We need to focus on an approach that's results-oriented first, not what feels good, not what sounds good, but actually does good. We need to fill the innovation gap by equipping the next generation to be entrepreneurs. We need to localize the issue in a way that engages communities that have been left behind. We need to empower individuals in a way that helps them realize they can make a difference and that they can help solve this problem. We need to reinstill our united love for the outdoors, something that all Americans share, contrary to popular belief. We need to marry the protection of climate championing with economic growth. We need to put all options on the table. And most of all, we can't let perfect be the enemy of the good. Conservative, liberal, or none of the above, we need everyone. As a 20-something that has the most to lose on climate change, I hope you'll join me in that fight. Thank you.